And now it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Ken Paulson, a graduate from the class of 1972. He is also a graduate of the University of Illinois College of Law and the University of Missouri School of Journalism. He started as an editor of the York High newspaper, but went on to be the founding editor of the USA Today and was a host of a TV series called Speaking Freely. He is currently a professor at Middle Tennessee State and serves as the president of the First Amendment Center. Please welcome York graduate, Mr. Ken Paulson.
Well, good evening. As you heard, I am the former editor-in-chief of USA Today, so you know I'm going to be brief. I am delighted to be here. Riding over here today, my wife Peggy said to me, I think no one enjoyed high school as much as you did in the history of the world. It's probably true. I've got the folks who gather the 1972 reunions together who organize that. I call them monthly and ask them, when's the next one? And I have to tell you, this is born of appreciation, respect, and thanks, because York has done so much for me. And frankly, I'm here tonight to say thank you and to honor a very special place and a very special tradition. York has made a tremendous difference in my life and career, just as it has for so many others. And I'm truly humbled, not just by the company of the folks up here, extraordinary people, but by literally the hundreds and thousands of York graduates who have changed the world, and we hopefully recognize on this stage in the not-too-distant future. If you'd asked the 8th grade Ken Paulson what he hoped for in life, I would have said I'd like lifelong friends, I'd like a girlfriend, I'd really, really like a girlfriend. I'd like to have a career in journalism, and I'd like to go to a good college. And because of York High School, all that became possible. I owe a special debt to Mrs. Fisher, who in addition to being a great Spanish teacher, she had the foresight to sit me right in front of a cute 16-year-old named Peggy Foote. It wasn't long before we started dating. Still are. Peggy. Great friends are here tonight, and lifelong friends, and I'm delighted you're here. I had the good fortune also of marrying into the Foote family. Members of that family are here tonight. Some of my dearest friends for decades are here this evening, and I'm grateful for that. I have to tell you, I'm also grateful to Mrs. Aralo. She was the advisor of the York High, who gave me my first chance to actually edit a newspaper. That's the newspaper I edited in '72. I have members of that group here today, the staff. Could you guys stand, please? The members of the York High staff. Thank you. I've edited newspapers all across America, and of all the newspaper staffs I've ever led, by far the most attractive, right there. I want you to notice this newspaper from '72. It was unique. It was the advent of something new called modular design. If you've been around long enough, you remember newspapers had these long trails of type and were kind of just jammed everything in. That was attractive. It was modular, and the stories were short. And it was my first chance to actually be a newspaper editor, and it meant the world to me. I also had on the next page a chance to speak my mind each and every month. It's called For What It's Worth, and it was my chance to express myself. It sounds self-effacing, but For What It's Worth was actually a quote from a popular song of the time by Buffalo Springfield. The lyrics went, there's something happening here, what it is ain't exactly clear, which to me was the perfect description of high school. And so I named my column For What It's Worth. And coincidentally, last month I had a chance to meet and spend some time with a man who wrote For What It's Worth. His name is Stephen Stills of Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. He did that as a member of Buffalo Springfield. And I could not help myself. I had to tell the man that he inspired my high school newspaper column. And he moved slowly away from me. I want to tell you, the other great thing that happened to me at the York High was I was able to actually be a newspaper editor. What happened in the late 80s in this country is the Supreme Court of the United States decided that these were just children putting out newspapers, and they did not have full free press rights anymore. But when I was editor of the York High, I learned to publish what I believed in. I looked at the copy carefully to make sure we weren't hurting other people, and I wrote blistering editorials about the then principle, and I meant them. And no one can stop me, and no one can censor me, but I exercised restraint and responsibility because I knew it was an important job. We've taken that away from our students. I spent much of my career as a newspaper editor, but almost as much time as a First Amendment advocate, attorney, and head of the First Amendment Center. And I am so grateful I was here at a time when I could actually learn the craft. And as a result, when I walked into this newsroom in 1982, I knew what I was doing in large part because I'd already been the editor of a newspaper. This will sound probably hard to believe, but when I became the editor of the largest newspaper in America in 2004, the lessons I learned at the York High served me well. They were not new lessons. They were about respecting your readers, publishing the truth, and providing balanced coverage, being fair and balanced long before it was a slogan for a cable channel. The York High served me well, and when I had a chance to edit a newspaper for real, it was just a matter of a larger audience. That was it. I want to point out also that this newspaper in 1982, the very first issue of USA Today, is modular and has short stories. It wasn't that big a leap for me to go from 1972 with the York High and to 1982 with USA Today. I also want to mention one other magical thing that happened for me. I mentioned if I had dreams of what I could do, I wanted to go to a great journalism school. Our advisor, Mrs. Rollo, said the best was the University of Missouri School of Journalism. I could not afford to go to that school. That was not going to happen. Then came a day in April when I ran a pretty good 220-yard dash. Someone you've heard of, Joe Newton, was my track coach. He called the School of Journalism and said, "You got to offer this kid a scholarship." They did. Full ride. I am grateful for that. So I've had a blessed life, and so much of it, family, friends, the newspaper, the university I attended, all of it is a straight line from this institution. I am grateful for everything I've benefited from at this university, all the important lessons I learned, all the people who pulled for me. A measure of the greatness of a high school is when it instills dreams in its students, and it's a blessing when those dreams come true. My family, my friends, and my career all go back to this institution and to the many who contributed so much to this extraordinary high school. I thank you and I salute you.